Hello, this is General Strategy here, bringing you the continuation to one of our previous podcasts that we kind of delayed due to other priority podcasts like Rise Skywalker. So this is Empire Strikes Back. And with me, I got here
Darksnovia, what's up?
and newcomer, Tritus.
This is Luke Warren. You guys may know me more as a member of Council in Exile, but here I am making my debut on the state of Star Wars.
Nice. Yep. And in this one, we're going to be talking about Empire Strikes Back since, well, it's, even though it already passed, the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. So, without further ado, shall we start with our first experiences with Empire Strikes Back?
Sure.
Well, who goes first? Let's go first?
I'll go first.
Okay. Go.
In fact, to be honest, this is kind of a lame one. Empire Strikes Back bored me as a kid. It really did bore me. I mean, it's like I liked A New Hope the most as a kid and Return of the Jedi. And when I was marathoning the original trilogy, I was like, oh god, I'm bored. Can we just get to a lightsaber duel already? Or why does the Hoth battle have to be over so quickly? Not to mention, even to this day, I still get bored with the Leia and Han romance scenes.
Oh.
That's gonna piss people off. And not to mention, Darth Vader being Luke's father didn't surprise me, considering I saw Return of the Jedi before Empire Strikes Back.
That's something.
So yeah, when I was younger, I didn't really appreciate this movie. I didn't start particularly liking this film until I got older. You know, when I was like in my teenage years, after I watched Revenge of the Sith, I rewatched Empire, and considering I loved Revenge of the Sith for being dark, and this became probably my third or favorite Star Wars movie. My favorites being Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi, and Empire Strikes Back. So yeah,
That it?
that's it.
Okay. Luke, you want to go or shall I go?
How do you want to go next?
Okay. If you want, I can go.
For
Okay.
it.
So, Empire Strikes Back. A bit similar to Darksnovia, I also liked episodes 4 and 6 more back in the day, though it wasn't because it bored me, more because I actually preferred more the bit more light-hearted tone of episodes 4 and 6. Empire Strikes Back, I didn't like that the good guys lost that time. I did see it in 2004 when I got the DVD, the 2004 special edition DVD. First 4, then 5, then 6. So I did at least see it in chronological order. So there is that. Though, remember guys, I saw episodes 1 and 2 first, then episodes 4, 5, and 6. Oh, and Clone Wars 2003, Volume 1 in the middle of that. So, though I probably experienced the Battle of Hoth in the Star Wars Trilogy arcade, just like other aspects of those 3 movies. Yeah, that arcade must have spoiled me a bit. But that is the closest I can get to, I guess, me remembering my first experience with Empire Strikes Back, because movie itself, I really like it nowadays. I actually think it's probably the best of the 3 original trilogy movies, as mostly with its quality and how it was made. Though my favorite is still Return of the Jedi, but Empire Strikes Back is damn good. So yeah, I do like this movie a lot nowadays. Back in the day, I liked more episodes 4 and 6. I like more episode 5. So there is that. And well, and by the way, even with watching episodes 1 and 2, I did experience the biggest plot twist in that movie, which we'll get into later. So the prequels didn't ruin it to me. So that much I can tell you. So I don't think I have much from my first experience with this movie, to be honest, other than I've seen elements of it in other media before, Trilogy Arcade, and then some video games like Star Wars Rogue Squadron for the N64. But that's about it. The entire movie itself, I saw it in 2004. So I guess that's it for me. So Luke, take it away.
Okay, well, I don't think I really had a proper first experience, so to speak, with Empire Strikes Back, and you guys will find out why. So when I was younger, so we're talking single digit years, I was very okay. Well, I didn't really care. So I didn't care so much for the story and the characters when it came to Star Wars. I cared more for the action scenes. So the battle between Luke and Vader on Cloud City. That's what I cared about more than anything else. Same goes with the lightsaber duels in the other OT movies, actually. I was also very bad with disc management as a kid. So, well, young as a young kid. So we're talking things would get smudges and scratches. Not the way to look after discs. So as a result, in terms of a first experience with it, I don't really have one, but I'll just say what I think of it nowadays. As I've gotten that bit older, I do appreciate the original trilogy much more, and I think Empire Strikes Back is the second best of the saga.
Behind?
Revenge of the Sith.
Oh.
Sorry, OT fanboys, but that's just my honest opinion.
Yeah. Anything else?
Not really, no.
Okay. Well,
OT fanboys are probably just raging in the comment section right now for us not blindly praising this movie as a second coming of Christ.
Oh, I think
hey, if you think they're raging right now, then wait until we do. If we ever do something on Rogue One, I'd have a lot to say about that.
Anyway, let's move on to its impact on pop culture.
Woof. I mean, there's plenty to talk about. Should we go with the biggest thing that impacted pop culture, or should we go, I guess, by order in some way?
Well, one thing we got to take into consideration in 1980, sequels for films were cash grabs. They really weren't that good. I mean, they were either repeats of the previous film, or they were the original movie but with a lower budget. And Empire Strikes Back, was different from other sequels at the time. Not only was it a rare occasion where the sequel is superior to the original, the production values are also, much bigger than A New Hope. It makes A New Hope special effects and its production, values and its sets look like a joke. Not even exaggerating.
Yeah, it does.
Not to mention Jim Henson's, I think that's the guy that did Yoda, that did the puppet for Yoda, is some of the best stuff we've ever seen in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's like everything this guy touches turns into a timeless masterpiece. And the puppet Yoda, even in 2020, it still looks as good as it did in 1980.
It does, honestly. Even in the Blu-ray HD version, it still looks great. You could almost tell it's not... Well, you couldn't even say it's a puppet, to be honest. It barely looks like one, compared to a certain future Star Wars movie that does look like a bad puppet.
I thought it was CG. The Yoda in The Last Jedi. I thought it was CG.
Oh, God. No, I thought it was a very bad puppet. Like, it looked really bad, almost unrealistic.
It looks like it's CGI.
The Yoda puppet in TLJ looks like Yoda from Rebels, but in realistic form, and it looks really crap.
Okay, I hate to say this. I know this is gonna piss off prequel haters. Unless it's Jim Henson doing the puppet for Yoda, stay the fuck away. Do not ever do a practical Yoda freaking puppet. Do not do it. You're not Jim Henson. You don't have his talent.
I agree. I agree. The Yoda puppet in Phantom Menace also looked crap.
Not nearly as bad as The Last Jedi, but yes.
Still,
It's just Jim Henson. Everything he's done looks good. I mean, all of his effects have held up. I mean, if you look at the electronics for the first TMNT movie, that still holds up. 30 years later, just like the Yoda puppet.
Yes.
It's and all the other effects that we see in this film with all the alien creatures that we see.
Yes.
I mean, Dagobah is one of the most imaginative environments in Star Wars. It feels like you're just visiting a alien world. It really does feel alien.
Yes. Indeed.
It's like it continues the trend of having, not just, a character, be a character that speaks. The environment itself is the character.
Yes. Not much history.
And I don't know if anyone, sorry.
No, go.
I don't know if anyone knew this. You could verify this in the Empire of Dreams documentary. You could easily find it on Disney Plus.
Or Netflix, I believe.
Yeah. This is the first, Star Wars movie that George Lucas financed himself. There was a lot of problems in production. Like, he was almost sued for using the same opening theme for Empire Strikes Back.
Wait, what?
I wasn't aware of this.
It happened. It was if you don't believe me, you could clarify this in the Empire of Dreams documentary.
But wait. You're saying that him using the same theme from the first Star Wars movie, he almost got sued for that?
Yes, because back then it wasn't common for directors to use the exact same piece of music for the sequel. It was always different. I mean, compare the first Planet of the Apes opening scene, at least its theme, and compare it to the sequels. They're different. Star Wars is the only film series where you had the same theme throughout the entire franchise, with a few exceptions.
Those people not know of a little thing called consistency. They're part of the same franchise, damn it.
Yeah, but I guess that's Hollywood back in the day.
Well, not to mention, its influence on pop culture has caused people to misremember the most famous line in cinematic history.
Yes.
Even James Earl Jones actually forgot to say the line correctly. Yeah, like there's like a Mandela effect. You guys, I'll let everyone else speak here because you guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
I actually have proof right here, Snovia, of the line being remembered incorrectly. I've actually got here with me an autograph. I met Prowse a few years ago at an event called Collectomania here in the UK, and he autographed a picture of Vader, Lando, and Boba on Cloud City, and he wrote, "But Luke, I am your father," which is not the original line.
No,
We
it
know.
isn't. I just watched the movie. It is, "No, I am your father." That's what it is.
I don't know if you guys know this. Did you know there's footage that exists on YouTube of the original audience reaction to that?
Oh, I will love to have been there in person.
It does exist. You can search it on YouTube, the original reaction.
I want to see it. Yeah. I want to see the reaction of the actors when they first saw it, because very few people knew of that plot twist. Only George Lucas, Mark Hamill, and Jensen Jones knew it. And I think Irving Kershner as well.
Actually, almost nobody knew about the twist. Almost nobody.
That's why I only mentioned those 4 people. Those were like the only ones that knew about it.
And as well. Sorry.
I guarantee you, if this came out today, it would have been leaked.
Also, as well, Mark Hamill, he was ordered to keep that secret under lock and key at the time, and he was afraid. There's an interview that you can find of Mark Hamill on a talk show called I think it's the Jonathan. It's either the Jonathan Ross show or the Graham Norton show. Actually, I think it's the Graham Norton show, where Mark was all like, I didn't like the burden of that. I talk in my sleep, He did.
Oh my god. Did his wife know?
I don't know.
That was something. No, he
I think
probably kept it to himself.
I think another interesting thing about Empire Strikes Back is what we actually got was not originally what was in mind for Empire Strikes Back, and I think it's the most. I think everyone and their mom knows what I'm about to talk about. We could have gotten Splinter of the Mind's Eye as the Star Wars sequel,
Yes.
instead of Empire.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, Splinter of Mind's Eye. If you remember, George Lucas, before the first Star Wars movie turned out to be a success, he thought the movie was not going to be very good. So he envisioned the sequel to basically be a very low budget, not even featuring Harrison Ford, because it would have been a big budget to even bring him back. So he didn't expect the first movie to be a success. Obviously, that changed. So instead of going with the idea he was pitching and even, I guess, helping plan with Alan Dean Foster. No, he instead went much bigger and grander because he now had budget to go even bigger compared to before Star Wars became a success.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye would have been like one of those really bad B movie sequels.
Yeah,
it would have been had it been made. It's a decent story in the EU, but as a movie itself, it would have been a cash grab.
Yeah. Agreed.
And with the success of Empire Strikes Back influenced, other, franchises to do a sequel as well, like Aliens.
Terminator?
No, I'm referring to movies that came, because, Aliens, the first one, came out before Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. As the success of Empire influenced, movies like Aliens, Aliens 2, I forget it. I'm not going to use the cringy terminology, and various other sci-fi series. Terminator 2, about 11 years later would have that same treatment, where it would be a movie that would be considered better than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
If, in a way, you could think Empire Strikes Back is the reason why sequels are so prevalent in Hollywood now. But if it weren't for this movie, I don't think the landscape of Hollywood would be the same as it is today.
Yeah.
It's like this movie is referenced in other movies, honestly.
Honestly. You have no idea how many sources of media and the internet reference this movie. One moment in particular is so mentioned that at this point, even watching it fresh is impossible. And you know which one I'm talking about. You know it. We even mentioned it minutes ago.
Yeah, it's like...
Wait, each is? Well, no. I am your father. Yeah, that one is so mentioned everywhere. In the internet, in all sources of media, like from Toy Story to Family Guy to Robot Chicken, even Kids Next Door at one point, the Fairy Odd
Family Guy.
There's so many sources that mention that specific moment. A lot of them.
I recall even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles referenced that in one of the movies or cartoons.
Damn. Yeah, that moment. By the way, prequel haters, it wasn't the prequels that ruined that moment. It was the internet and the pop culture. So deal with it.
Oh.
I had to mention it.
Of course. Can we debunk this misconception that this movie was hated when it first came out?
Oh, thank you, Hello Guido, for being such an idiot. Oh my god.
Can we please debunk that? Because
yes.
Considering it's something that TLJ defenders will always use to defend their shitty movie. Empire Strikes Back. Well, of course it wasn't well received by some critics. Critics didn't like any of the other films either.
They didn't.
In fact,
like
a lot of the movies that are considered classics weren't received well by critics. They only became classics because audience loved them.
Got some examples?
Scarface wasn't loved by critics, and it's considered a classic. Christmas Carol, is a classic, but it's not because of critics. It's because of the audience. No one knew what Christmas Carol was. Wait, no, Christmas Story. Fuck, wrong movie.
That's something.
Versus Carol, that's so stupid. It's written by one of the famous, writers of the 19th century. Why did I get that mixed up? Anyway.
Oh.
Anyway.
What other?
Let's see. I'm just thinking of others, of other films. Blade Runner was like barely anyone critics talked about it, and look where it is. It's considered a cult classic.
Even got a sequel many years later.
Freaking many movies. I can't think of any more movies on the top of my head at this point in time. Honestly, Aliens, yeah, that too. It's like a lot of films that are considered classics today were not well received by critics. In fact, a lot of the films that freaking we like now, I mean not like now, that are coming out now, critics back in the day would rip them apart. Like the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a big example of this, and the new Star Wars movies. That critics were harsh on the prequels and the original trilogy. They would rip those movies a new one if they were released at that time.
By the way, speaking of critics hating everything, so those critics, let me get this straight. Those critics, they hated the original trilogy back then, but starting when the prequels came out, they started loving it. And now with the sequels, they seem to like the OT now, but they shilled for The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, but then The Rise of Skywalker, they shit on that one hard. Is there any logical consistency?
Well, here's the thing. At this point in time, Disney is a superpower in the entertainment industry. They were nothing in the 80s. And they didn't own Star Wars. So of course you didn't have as many movies, being shilled for reviews because they didn't have to. It wasn't until the dawn of the internet is when you started seeing this happen more and more. Yes. Or some movies actually got a good or bad review based on a critic's political affiliation.
What?
Oh God! One of the
but that's a different topic altogether. It is true. Certain conservative critics would not give a movie a good review if it wasn't patriotic.
Oh God!
I'm speaking from the perspective of an American. I'm just saying that's how it was back then. It isn't like it is now, where whoever has the most money are the ones that are given the best reviews. Then again, you could not be getting paid at all and still be a blind fanboy like a certain somebody I could mention.
Oh yeah, there's that. Also, speaking of critics being paid out to give positive reviews, one of those earlier examples I saw, not The Force Awakens, though wouldn't be surprised if it was one of those. It was Alien Covenant, because first the critics come out and they give him like decent to positive reviews, but then Angry Joe came in and broke the mold, and from there is where people start actually seeing the problems and actually seeing, yeah, this movie's not pretty good. So yeah, you can see that critics, it's like, can you really trust them at any point? Because I doubt it.
Not really, I guess.
Not to mention, critics are biased in general. They've been biased since the dawn of time. It's like you can't trust everything a critic has to say. It's like some movies you do have to judge for themselves. I mean, follow the money. Who's paying these people? If they're getting paid to give a movie a certain review, then they're getting paid. And no, I'm not into that conspiracy theory that Marvel's paying critics to give DC movies shitty reviews. But I don't believe that they would do that. The point is, if you talk to people that watched Empire Strikes Back and you've read some reviews, it wasn't as hated like these people claim that it was. And not to mention, even if that were true, there's a huge difference between Empire and The Last Jedi. Honestly, there was no other movie like Empire Strikes Back when it came out. It really wasn't. Not only was it a sequel that was better than the original, objectively, acting, production value, music.
We'll get into detail with that soon.
The special effects, everything about Empire Strikes Back made the first Star Wars movie look like a joke. It's like no other sequel did that before Empire Strikes Back. None.
No.
The Last Jedi. Let's be real. When Last Jedi came out, you had 40 years worth of Star Wars movies. You had like multiple movies at this point. You had Rogue One, the first spinoff. You had Force Awakens. You had the prequels. What does The Last Jedi do differently? Honestly, it doesn't do anything differently that Empire didn't do when it came out.
Not really, no.
The only thing TLJ does differently is mistreat stuff, but that's an entirely different conversation.
Well, okay, I know. Okay, I know some people are like, oh, you guys are ranting about TLJ again. So it's not a rant. It's just bringing up a point that the influence The Last Jedi will have on pop culture, it's not going to be felt. Honestly, okay. If anything, what you're seeing right now, Marvel, Infinity War, Endgame, that has an influence on pop culture. It's going to have it for decades to come. The Last Jedi is just going to be looked at as a stupid movie, that was freaking released at a time where it was one of the most divisive times in American history. It ain't going to be looked at as anything more than that. TLJ doesn't have the staying power Empire has.
Well, there's also another big reason why both movies, pretty different. Empire Strikes Back is a good movie. Last Jedi isn't. So there's that too.
Well, here's what. Sorry.
That's all right. Go on.
You speak, Luke.
TLJ, it's not just a bad movie, it's also an insulting movie. Empire doesn't do that to you.
Yeah.
Also, another thing, which is a stupid comparison, when Empire Strikes Back came out, there was no other movie besides the first Star Wars before Empire came out.
And maybe it was some Marvel comics.
Yeah, but I'm talking about for those who don't give a shit about books or comics. I'm talking about as far as the moviegoers were concerned, there was only one other movie before Empire, and that was the original. Mm-hmm. The Last Jedi, you had 8 other movies prior to it. Well, you could make an argument there was like 10 if you count the Ewok movies, which nobody wants to pretend they exist. 11 if you want to count the Christmas special.
12 if you want to count TCW, but that's animated. So.
Okay, let's.
Okay, but still, you had a lot of stuff to compare Empire Strikes. The Last Jedi to, and it's not only one of the worst entries of its own series; it's one of the worst movies of its decade. There's better science fiction movies that have come out in the 2010s than The Last Jedi.
Yeah,
like Blade Runner 2049 is better than The Last Jedi in every single way.
Oh yes.
Well, Empire Strikes Back, it's like what. Speaking of which, another thing that makes Empire Strikes Back stand out over the The Last Jedi is the casting. Billy D. Williams, when he was cast, it was a big deal back then.
Explain.
Black men weren't really prevalent in films, and not to mention Empire Strikes Back, came out 12 years after the Civil Rights Act was passed. I think it was 11 to 12 years.
Oh.
So it was a big deal having a black man in a blockbuster film.
Interesting.
Not to mention, Billy D. Williams, he nailed that role for Lando. He really did.
Oh, yes.
I cannot imagine any other actor that could have played Lando.
No, not really. Honestly.
Even though he was only there for like 15 to 20 minutes, and I'm talking in total 30. It feels less than that.
Probably because some changes to cutscenes, but it's
I'm just okay. Well, despite the little screen time he had in the movie, he did a lot for the little time that he had.
Yeah.
He was competent. He was he was charming. he's someone that you instantly liked as soon as you saw him.
Oh yes. How you doing, old buddy? So good to see you.
It's like Billy D. Williams like has that charisma behind him. Like you instantly want to like this guy as soon as you see him. In fact, I wouldn't mind having a drink with him. This is the kind of guy I wouldn't mind having a drink with.
The charisma factor also kind of plays into how Lando tries to smooth over Leia when those two interact.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, is there anything else to discuss impact on pop culture, or should we go now to discuss the movie itself?
Well, I want to get into other stuff as well, I guess. Like, so on. Let me look it up on the outline really quick. Okay. Yeah, actually, let's get to the characters because we kind of already are there already because we started talking about the casting for Lando.
Okay, well, we're getting to the next topic as in the movie itself, specifically how all of its elements have aged. We start with the characters. Let's go with that first.
We already talked about Lando, so we don't need to discuss that again.
Let's go with the OT cast that returned from the first movie. So,
Shall we start? We start with Mark Hamill as Luke, or
yeah, the main protagonist, Luke Skywalker. Let's go. So,
he's still whiny even in this movie.
I actually think it's a bit more whinier here than A New Hope, to be honest.
Oh, but Anakin is so whiny in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, hang. Ben, I can be a Jedi. You tell him I'm ready.
He whines constantly about when he does stuff on Dagobah.
Oh boy, yeah. Like, man, like father, like son.
It's like, yeah, Luke is a bitch like his father before him.
Yeah, so OT fanboys, stop panning Anakin when Luke acts the exact same way.
Okay, don't get me wrong. I think Mark Hamill's performance in this film is leagues ahead of his performance in A New Hope. Come on.
Agreed.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I was not shitting on his performance. I did think his performance was well done. So, and also you can see that in Empire Strikes Back, when you see Luke Skywalker, you kind of see a character arc in some ways here. He did have one in New Hope, but I think Empire Strikes Back is the one that affected Luke the most, if you ask me. I'm not just talking about the ending, but more like across the movie. Like, at first, he gets attacked by a Wampa. He has to fend for himself. Then he has to assist Rogue Squadron, so on and so forth. You know the story. So yeah, I do think he has a much better character arc than he did in A New Hope. So, what do you guys think of that?
For me, Luke feels more like a complete character than he did in A New Hope. In A New Hope, he felt kind of stoic.
Kind of,
like,
yeah.
He felt a little two-dimensional in A New Hope.
Kind of, yeah. That could be the case, yeah. So
in Empire, we saw more aspects of his character. We saw more flaws, of Luke exposed in Empire compared to A New Hope.
yes.
Speaking of flaws, can I bring up something that sequel defenders often say about Luke?
Oh yeah.
And I think you gents know where I'm going with this. So we all know that it's a very common defense mechanism among hardcore sequel fanboys to say, well, if Rey is a Mary Sue, then that makes Luke a Gary Stew. Right, let's go through. Let me just take you through a couple of Luke's feats in this film that I can think of off the top of my head. First off, when he's captured and he's tied up in the Wampa cave, you see him visibly struggling to pull Anakin's lightsaber, and by the way, it's Anakin's, not Luke's or Rey's, OT fanboys, out of the heap of snow. Whereas Rey was able to do that pretty much casually, from what we could see in The Force Awakens. And, at this point, it's been, 3 years?
3
Between
years.
episodes 4 and 5?
Yes.
Luke is still struggling, whereas Rey can pull a saber out of the snow over the course of one film by the end like that. Seriously. And also another thing, during the tests with Yoda when he tries to lift his X-wing out of the swamp. He struggles to
can't.
do that. Stop saying that
excuse?
Luke's a Gary Stew, for God's sake.
Not to
His excuse?
mention,
Oh, what's
not to mention, Rey succeeded in almost everything she did on her first try.
I don't even think she failed at all.
I said almost everything.
So, but yeah, Luke, we see him go from, well, I guess kind of having some training to then being more experienced. However, not even that gave him the victory in the end. In the end, he lost. He lost, which is something.
If Rey was an Empire, she would have defeated Darth Vader in the second movie as soon as she saw him.
I would even go as far as she would have destroyed Darth Vader in A New Hope. No joke.
Well, I'm sorry for shitting on the sequels, but it's unavoidable when the subject of Empire gets brought up.
Let's try to keep it to a minimum. Let's try
Yes.
to keep it to a minimum. So, if you want to share the sequels, we can do it another time. So, okay.
Yes.
Empire Strikes Back. So, characters. Anything else to mention, Luke Skywalker?
I actually think Mark Hamill's performance is better than A New Hope. I don't have much else to say.
Okay. Well, I guess we go to the next OT character then. It's, well, Leia. Yeah, let's go with Leia. So, Leia Organa, portrayed by Carrie Fisher. So, what do we have to say about her?
Am I the only one who finds Leia in this film at least a little bit stagnant? Like just a bit?
Stagnant.
I think he means stoic. I don't even know what. Sorry.
I don't see, unlike Luke or Han, I don't see much with Leia in terms of progression from one film to the next.
I guess though A New Hope kind of had that too, to be honest. I actually think Empire Strikes Back gave her a bit more than A New Hope did, to be honest.
If I have to be honest, I think Carrie Fisher was still a bad actress, even in Empire.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Fighting words, Novia.
I felt everything that she's like. Every time she has her dialogue with Han Solo, it feels cringeworthy.
I found Han more cringeworthy in those scenes than Leia, but carry on.
At least Harrison Ford, we've seen him act in other films. Carrie Fisher she doesn't feel believable as a human being in Star Wars.
Oh.
Oof. That is indeed fighting words, far more so than before.
I just don't find her character interesting in the movies. In any of them, actually, not just Empire.
Okay. That's something.
I have nothing else to say, to be honest.
Luke, got anything to say?
Leia, I feel like the most prominent side of Leia we see in Empire Strikes Back is her more temperamental side, I guess. Like whether it be the romantic, it mainly comes out in the romantic interactions between her and Han. She's still there are times where she, because of the dialogue delivery, sounds a bit stroppy to me. Like if you listen to when the rest of the group, Luke, arrive on Cloud City, and Lando's like, I don't trust Lando, but he's my friend, and Leia's like, I don't trust Lando. It's it's like, come on, lighten up a bit. We've already seen your snark. We don't need more of it.
To be fair, at that time, 3PO was missing, so there's that. So, there's that. Something I'm gonna mention about Leia here, I actually think she has a bit more character development here in Empire Strikes Back compared to A New Hope. A New Hope, I actually think she kind of stays the same, and not necessarily in a very bad way, like other characters in future Star Wars movies, but I think in Empire Strikes Back she did get a bit more character development to at least see more of her. I think it's because in New Hope She out of the three OT cast, I think she was the one that they had the least screen time, whereas Empire Strikes Back it was more shared. So I think that probably is the reason, if you ask me.
She may have more character development, but I don't find Leia interesting in any of the films, honestly.
Okay,
Either.
I mean that's you. So there is that. So I guess now we go to Han Solo.
Yes.
Okay, let's go with the scruffy-looking nerf herder.
So scruffy looking.
Okay, who wants to go first?
Well, Harrison Ford, I think it plays off Han Solo very well.
Mhm.
Honestly, I think Han Solo feels more like a person in this movie than he does in the first movie, who just felt like, hey, I'm a space cowboy. Fuck with me and I'll kill you.
And I want to be rich.
Hey, well, that isn't too far off. Hey, I like that about Han in A New Hope. In fact, I don't think Star Wars would have succeeded without Harrison Ford, honestly.
Probably, though some people say that for Darth Vader, but we'll get to that soon.
Yes, but it's just Han Solo. It feels like he you could see that he's changed a lot in the past 3 years. That he isn't as much of a selfish prick like he was in A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to
kind of was.
He's willing to sacrifice himself for those he cares about.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I think I will agree with Harrison Ford on, well, originally in the script, when Leia said "I love you" to Han was gonna say "I love you too," but Harrison Ford took initiative and said "I know."
Yeah, I agree. That is definitely better. It's
because
the character well.
It doesn't fit him saying "I love you" too, because no, that's not Han. No, he isn't. He. I mean, no. I'm just glad he didn't do that. Even though Han, isn't as prevalent in this movie like he is in the first movie, I still enjoy every scene that he's in.
Yeah.
It's ironic. Harrison Ford wanted to kill off Han Solo in this movie too.
I think, he wanted Han Solo dead since this movie. I don't know if A New Hope it was that the case.
This is the first movie he wanted to kill off Han Solo. He's the only one of the actors that they didn't have on contract. For another film. Which explains why Lando was in Han Solo's, attire. I think there's a possibility that Billy D. Williams might have replaced Harrison Ford if they couldn't get him to come back.
Yeah, but then Return of the Jedi, we know how that went.
Yes.
So, there is that. I think I'm more to say on Han Solo.
No.
Anything else?
Nope.
Well, I do have one thing to mention. If you remember, in A New Hope, he did not believe one single bit about the Force existing whatsoever. He didn't believe it at all. This movie shattered that. He made it like, oh, Darth Vader, I'm gonna shoot him point blank, and that didn't affect Darth Vader. If anything, he just used the Force to completely nullify the damage of the blaster bolts and take his blaster. So I guess there's some raw display of Force powers, Han. I guess it's not some sort of mumbo jumbo like you thought in A New Hope. So there's that. I guess there's a bit of character progression there. Small one, but a bit. Because remember, Han Solo later on, he does start actually believing in the Force. And I'm not just talking about the EU, but even Disney Star Wars in both timelines. And Empire Strikes Back is the one that broke the mold there in his mind, which is commendable because, again, Empire Strikes Back was doing things differently than A New Hope. So that's one of them.
For me, Han, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not particularly keen on Han as a character. I'll take Luke any day over Han when it comes to the original heroes.
Well, that makes two of us.
But, like, it's not that he's a bad character. in terms of how he's written, and I think Harrison Ford did the best with the material he worked with. I found like the points where Harrison Ford was really giving it his all, which are the interactions between Han and Leia, specifically the romantic ones. There's a part of me that kind of finds some of the dialogue annoying. Some of the lines aren't the best. But, like, when they're in the tunnels inside Echo Base, and when Han says to Leia, "You're afraid I was going to leave you without giving you a goodbye kiss," and then Leia said, "Was it?"
I'd just rather kiss a Wookiee.
Yeah, and then Han goes, "I can arrange that," and then he just storms off in a huff and goes, "You could use a good kiss."
I think that was meant to be funny.
Yeah, it was. I actually kind of laughed a bit.
Or you know when Han returns with Luke and they're in the med bay, not when Luke is in the bacta tank, but when he's lying on the bed.
Yeah.
And Han's like, "You should have seen us in the tunnels. She was expressing her true feelings for me." Like, that's cringy. I don't care what anyone says.
Well,
He's a complete scoundrel.
Okay, let's be honest. If this was the sequel trilogy, Leia would have called Han an asshole.
Yeah. And and Han probably would have said, "You should have seen us in the hallways. She expressed her love for me." Something like that.
That would be even worse.
Yeah, indeed. So, but I actually think the writing here is a bit better than A New Hope, to be honest. Then again, the writing is from George Lucas. It's the same mastermind of Star Wars. Like, if you have issues with the writing here, it's going to be the same across all the other Star Wars movies. Like, it's unavoidable. So there is that. But I actually do think the writing here isn't it better, improved than A New Hope, and I think it's because George Lucas is not really restricted with the budget and all the other stuff that restricted A New Hope. For example, it couldn't go grander in scale because of the budget, the effects were scaled down, etc. Whereas in here, he does have a lot more possibilities, more room to breathe, more to explore, which I think is excellent. Because I think when creative masterminds definitely have the chances to express their creativity, I think they should do it. They should have nothing restrict them. So there is that. What do you guys think?
I have nothing more to add, to be honest.
Okay. Well, the other characters, shall we get to the droids? R2 and 3PO?
Empire's... honestly, those two are... Yes, they filled this role in A New Hope, but Empire... Like, I watched it second time round mere hours before we sat down to record this. Those two are the definition of inserting comic belief at points where it's not really appropriate given some of the situations the heroes find themselves in.
I guess, though, honestly, I mean, they're droids. They're not gonna change their personalities or anything, so that's that. And I actually didn't feel that. I felt this part of the characters. Whereas if you want the definition of shoehorn comic relief, look no further than the fucking stupid porks in The Last Jedi, or BB-8 doing those really comical but stupid stuff in The Last Jedi, like trying to repair the X-wing. That sort of stuff is indeed shoehorn comic relief. No, R2 and 3PO in Empire Strikes Back, it's just them being their characters, to be honest.
Honestly, I love R2-D2 and 3PO the way they are.
Me too, honestly. Yeah, me too. I don't want it to change.
It's not that I by any means hate them. I think Kenny Baker and Anthony Daniels, they do the best they can. I can definitely relate to the heroes when D3PO runs his mouth off at times and they're just like, "Can you please shut up?"
Well, yeah, but that is supposed to be the case. That's the point. I mean, 3PO is supposed to be a protocol droid sometimes. There are times he cannot really shut up.
There is one thing which is quite funny. I think it's when the Falcon is flying through the asteroid field, and Han is like, "Chewie, can you take the professor out the back and hook him up to the hyperdrive?" And then he's like, I don't know what this is all about. I'm only a protocol droid." And partway through his rambling off about being treated badly, the door to the cockpit shuts.
Well,
That's genuinely funny.
well, 3PO, he always at times can be a bit annoying. Luke is the one that has the most patience for him, because especially later on when he's a Jedi. But yeah, even he a bit could get even he a bit could say, yeah, maybe deactivate him. So there is that. So, but yeah, I like R2-3PO. I don't want him to change much, to be honest.
Kind of hypocritical for prequel haters to complain about Jar Jar being annoying when he's only in one film. When 3PO
He's in
can
three.
be yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And not to mention the stupid porks in The Last Jedi. So
F to the porks.
there's that. So other characters. Oh, Chewbacca. We forgot to talk about him. So Chewie, what should we say about him?
I think he did it. I think he played his part well. The late, but I forgot what his name. Who
Peter
played
Mayhew.
Peter Mayhew. I cannot pronounce his name, so I'll let someone else say it.
Peter Mayhew.
Yeah, he did. I think he did a great job with Chewbacca. By communicating non-verbally, even though the growls, you don't know what the fuck Chewie's saying. You probably could add fucking subtitles just for shits and giggles. Like I always imagine Chewie basically like, God damn it, I can't stand these droids, or God damn can you stop giving me shit?
I could, even though he doesn't say anything, I can definitely say what he's thinking. For example, when Leia says to Han, I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain, and when Chewie, you can see that he is indeed laughing, and then
He's like,
laugh it up, fuzzball.
Yeah.
So yeah, Peter Mayhew could definitely did portray Chewbacca the best he could, and he's a character that can't even talk. At least talk where we could understand it. So
Yeah.
he's Chewie, despite him never be able to speak basic, is a better character than any of the Star Wars sequel characters.
Ooh. I mean, I wouldn't want Chewie to change. You can in fact find production clips of A New Hope, as in behind the scenes, where Chewie was speaking English. Can we imagine Chewie speaking Galactic Basic? No.
oh god.
That would have been. Oh god.
Well, it has happened chronologically. Aliens can speak basic. It's just they mostly prefer their native tongue. But this is EU. This is Star Wars. I have no idea what they've done. So there's that.
I'm just saying, if Chewie spoke Galactic Basic in the films, would we consider it Chewbacca? I don't think so.
Maybe no. I bet the sequels came first. They would have done it. I can guarantee you that.
Oh.
Yeah. So there is that. Anything else to say on Chewie?
Nope.
Okay, we go to another big character that we cannot forget to mention, Darth Vader. How did he do in this movie compared to?
I thought you were going to bring up Boba Fett. I actually thought you were going to bring him up.
Oh, well, okay, we'll get to some of the other side characters, but Darth Vader's a big one. We need to talk about him. So,
I think
the man in. Go on.
James Earl Jones, was amazing in this film, just like he was in the first movie.
I think he was better here a bit, if you ask me.
I'd say James Earl Jones's vocal performance is definitely superior in this one. Vader, especially in this film, he's the man in black who you wouldn't want to cross in a dark alley, otherwise he would choke you to death.
Like he did with those Imperial officers.
Like when he worst choked Admiral Ozzel, it's like, how the hell did Ozzel survive this long in the Imperial Navy being this incompetent?
Well, we do got our answer, but we need to take a look at it later.
One thing that I want to say about Vader's intimidation factor as well is that not only did the Imperial officers who suffer his wrath firsthand in this film feel it, but you can even see it with other officers, like for going to the scene where Vader chokes out Admiral Ozzel, and he puts Admiral Piet, is it, in charge of the attack on Hoth?
Yeah.
and he goes, "You're in command now, Admiral Piet." And obviously,
Oh!
he tries to he tries to put on a firm front when he goes, "Thank you, Lord Vader." But if you look closely, just before the scene transitions, you can see him kind of flexing his neck away from the screen as if he feels very uncomfortable.
I thought
He
that was
would be,
I thought it
given
was
that his
because
colleague was just choked out.
I thought it was because also basically was down and I mean, come on, just hearing the scream, oh, and he goes down. I mean, seriously, that was like something. But yeah, Vader here, if you ask me, in episode 4, he was not really the main villain. No, Grand Moff Tarkin was the villain in episode 4. No, here in episode 5, he is the real villain. You can actually see that in here. He actually is legitimately a big threat and one that you can definitely don't want to cross unless you want to fight him head on. So there is that. Also, can we mention that in here, this is the movie that established that Vader is subservient to an even superior being, the Emperor. He was mentioned in New Hope, but it was not established that Vader was personally subservient to the Emperor. And in here, we do see that, which is very interesting if you ask me. That is something. What do you guys think of that?
The Emperor. I'll let Snovia say his piece, and then I'll say mine because it involves
there isn't much to say about the Emperor because he only has a few lines in Empire Strikes Back,
and it's just one scene.
And not to mention, the version that most of us watch today, has the actor that we all, the actor that we all know who plays him. Originally, it was a different actor altogether.
Oh,
that did the voice for him, and it just doesn't make sense.
No,
I was actually sorry.
I was gonna say that I actually think no, it's not just the voice, but the appearance. It was like, what am I looking at? This is not the Emperor.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up because we all know how much OT purists love to wind their heads off about the special edition changes. The Ian McDiarmid Emperor hologram looks better than the original. Change my mind.
Oh, I agree, 100%. In fact, that's actually one of those changes that OT purists don't hate. Actually, Empire Strikes Back is the movie that most OT purists don't hate in regard to the special editions, actually. They don't really hate it that much. Which is surprising. The ones they hate are episodes 4 and 6. 5, not so much. They mostly tolerate it at best.
Well, there's barely any special edition changes in episode 5.
Yeah, the most notable ones are that we see the Wampa in full suit, the Ian McDiarmid, also, the hologram as well. Then there are a few extra scenes, like Vader leaving Bespin in his shuttle and arriving in his Star Destroyer. But that was, and I guess a few ATSTs added the Battle of Hoth. And that was it, honestly. There wasn't much. So there is that.
There is actually one special edition change which I like on the 97 version, which I do actually think hurts the movie, but I'll get to that when we get to relevant portion.
Okay, so, well, anything else to mention Darth Vader?
Not really.
I can't say.
Okay, well, I will mention that his suit actually looks a lot better compared to A New Hope. A New Hope's, it looked good, but you could definitely say that the budget is a bit low. In Empire Strikes Back, you actually do see it. The suit definitely looks like new. It looks like it's taken care of by Vader. Like it actually looks imposing and stuff. Doesn't look cheap, which is excellent. So that much is there. Though, since that involves cinematography and effects, I think we should transition into that. So let's go to how the movie looks visually, how cinematography, and also how it sounds. So, what do you guys think of it?
Let's say that again.
What do you think? What do you think about how the movie looks and sounds?
I actually think it's aged pretty well, all things considered. I mean, it's over 40 years old. I mean, it's aged better than most movies that have come out, even half the time.
Yeah.
There's only one scene in Empire Strikes Back where I feel the effects are where the effects do kind of blatantly show their age. And it's during the scene I'm talking about is when Luke enters the cave on Dagobah, and when he fights the illusion of Vader in slow motion. Slow motion looks kind of crap.
Yeah, but that's slow motion. That's not the movie itself in terms of it being visually. When we're talking about the movie itself, we're talking how it visually looks in terms of its effects, its practical effects, its settings, its everything. The slow motion maybe it does look crappy, but it does the job done. To be honest, I don't mind it, honestly.
Okay, I apologize. Speaking strictly in terms of actual visuals, then I can't think of anything off the top of my head that looks horrid.
Darksnovia?
Wait, say that again.
Do you think of any practical effects or anything that looks bad at the movie?
I can't think of anything that's aged badly.
Okay, me neither, to be honest. So there is that. The movie looks really good, practical effects wise and sound wise. Oh, we should get to the sound. So, what do you guys think of the sound effects that it used this movie?
I think
Effects are timeless.
I think the sound effects are timeless, and have we haven't even talked about the soundtrack yet.
Oh, let's get to the soundtrack. Let's get to the soundtrack. So, something else that this movie impacted in pop culture, by the way, the soundtrack. There is one track in particular that I can think of that has definitely impacted pop culture, and you know which one it is? The Imperial March theme.
And can we mention that a certain somebody, used the Imperial March in one of his podcast?
But what do you mean? Explain.
Alex Jones.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
And Howard Stern used it as well in one of his podcast. Various other people have used the Imperial March.
Yeah.
The Imperial March is probably the most famous piece of Star Wars music, other than the main theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. Contrary to popular belief, and I originally thought this as well, but after having watched both Empire and A New Hope and Empire in quick succession, I now know this isn't true. Empire Strikes Back is where the Imperial March makes its debut, not A New Hope.
Yes. Indeed.
Wait, who says it was in A New Hope?
No, I haven't watched, believe it or not, I haven't watched the original 6 movies that much. I know that seems kind of crazy to say, but I originally thought at one point Imperial March appeared in A New Hope, but it doesn't. So
it's interesting about the Imperial March. There's several remixes of it throughout the entire franchise.
Oh yeah.
In fact, you get more than one version of it in this film.
Yeah, but obviously the one that is the most well known is when we see the Star Destroyers there in space.
There's multiple renditions of it in Clone Wars, all the prequel movies, the sequels, Rogue One. I'm sorry, I'm reluctantly mentioning those materials.
One of those that definitely resembles Imperial March. If you remember the end of Attack of the Clones, when we see all of the acclamator ships with all the clones loading in, that definitely is, even though it's its own piece of music, you can see that it definitely has some inspiration from Empire Strikes Back.
Love Across the Stars, certain notes of Love Across the Stars sounds like parts of Imperial March.
Yes.
The Imperial March, there's actually a point during the portion of the Cloud City fight where it's the portion of the duel where Vader is hurling crates at Luke, which eventually causes the window to shatter.
Yes.
Yeah.
You hear a different version of the Imperial March, which is taken down a key and it's much slower.
Yeah, indeed. So there is that. Now, let's just not talk about the Imperial March alone, because this movie has plenty more great music than just that song alone. Like the Battle of Hoth, for example, that's a damn good music piece.
Yoda's theme is one of the most famous Star Wars pieces of music ever.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They've used it in multiple, Star Wars, media, and TCW being one of them.
Yes.
And that certain movie that I will not name.
Yeah.
Han Solo and the Princess is another one, which is kind of the romance theme for Han and Leia when they're together.
I know which one you're talking about, though I don't know if it's one of the more popular ones. I do know another one that is pretty popular that's been used in multiple Star Wars media. The one that is used when the Millennium Falcon is escaping Bespin with Luke aboard. The one that sometimes they call it the Forever Train, or the one that is used in Shadows of the Empire 4th level and Star Wars Bounty Hunter the first place.
I remember that. I remember that theme. Yeah.
That one specifically. That is also one of those pretty popular ones. So there is that. Which other one? There's other soundtracks as well. I believe another one that is one of those. The one in Cloud City. You know when Lando's like introducing Bespin to everyone. Cloud City, like that one. I definitely think it's more Lando's theme, though I think it has its own name, to be honest. But yeah, that's another great piece of music. I don't know if it's one of the more popular ones, but it's a damn good one. So
it's a very lively piece, that one.
Yes, indeed. So there is that. Indeed. So anything else to talk about soundtrack-wise?
I have nothing else to say, to be honest.
Okay. Soundtrack-wise? Okay. So any other stuff we should mention with Empire Strikes Back? Oh wait, I almost forgot. This movie is also the second introduction to Star Wars for Boba Fett.
Fuck Boba Fett.
because the holiday special did it first.
The most overrated freaking character in Star Wars history.
Really? I thought it was Darth Vader.
No, it's fucking Boba Fett. But Boba Fett is only in total like 2 fucking minutes of this whole trilogy, and he's suddenly one of the most popular characters, and everyone thinks he's like all this fucking badass shit. He falls in the Sarlacc pit and fucking dies.
Oh, speaking of Boba Fett, this is another thing OT purists whine about, the voice change in the special editions.
Oh God.
For me, I'm indifferent when it comes to Boba Fett's, voice change. I don't care one way or the other.
Okay. There is that. So,
not to mention, he only has a few fucking lines.
And he doesn't even have a line in Return of the Jedi.
Like, Boba Fett is just, look at me. I'm a cool looking character, but I fucking fall into a Sarlacc pit. Just look at me. That's all I fucking am. And people bitch about my voice change.
Oh, God. Well, Boba Fett, I don't think we should get too much in detail outside Empire Strikes Back. And it was just a quick mention. So there is that.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about Boba Fett because this will turn into a rant about Boba Fett. So yeah.
Indeed. So something else I gotta mention this about Empire Strikes Back. You mentioned it before, Darksnovia, but I think this movie applies to it just as much in New Hope, maybe a bit more, but who knows. The world building and all the elements and stuff that has been established for Star Wars that nowadays we take for granted. I really do think it should. Like, for example, A New Hope introduced pretty much it introduced hyperspacing ships. It introduced, the planets we know and love. This movie introduced Hoth, introduced Dagobah, introduced Bespin, introduced Lando. It introduced also, of course, several other bounty hunters that are not Boba Fett. For example, Bosk is one of them. Also, Sokka is in Fort Lum. So, other elements as well.
Dengar.
Yeah,
what this movie does introduce, without this film, the Force would not be as expansive as it is now.
Yes,
because barely any of it is touched on in A New Hope. Empire actually got more in depth with it.
Yes, indeed. In A New Hope, we got like a basic description of the Force and how it works. But in Empire Strikes Back, it expanded on it, thanks to Yoda teaching Luke Skywalker what it is and going.
Yes, me. This is the Star Wars movie I felt like dived into the Force the best of any of them.
Really? Explain.
Because it's the only one we actually have, our protagonist go on a personal spiritual journey and to learn more about the world around him and the Force and how everything is connected with the Force.
That's true, yeah.
Because the prequels, they didn't have time to focus on that because there was a bunch of shit going on.
Yeah.
And the less we talk about the sequels, the better.
Yeah, indeed. So, but yeah, it is true. It definitely expanded a lot of the Force. It also expanded on how the galaxy definitely was in some ways ruled by the Empire. I mean, we did get established in New Hope, but Empire Strikes Back, we saw how the Empire basically they dominated the galaxy with an iron fist. Even with the Death Star gone, they were still a big threat, which is definitely surprising, if you ask me. Well, not too surprising because they were the dominant force in the galaxy, but still, yeah. Empire Strikes Back definitely, it introduced stuff and expanded stuff from A New Hope, which is excellent. That's what sequels definitely must do. They must adhere to what the first movie did and what's set as the core rules or standards for that specific franchise, and they should build up on it or add some stuff that definitely it brings its own set of I guess elements into the franchise, but it doesn't ruin what the previous movie did, unlike certain 40-year later movies. So there is that. So, yep. Some other stuff that Empire Strikes Back did over A New Hope, besides the music, the character, story, music, pretty much and the world build. The world building I'm not talking about the Star Wars elements, but the world building. I think it was expanded a lot more than A New Hope, if you ask me, Darksnovia and Luke. What do you guys think in terms of world building?
Of course it did. I mean, A New Hope, for all intents and purposes, was made to be one film, regardless what George Lucas wants to say, now and many years after the fact. There was no sequel planned for A New Hope. Mm-hmm. So everything that it established, it was basically as telling the audience what they expect in the movie, from start to finish. Empire just greatly expand upon this world.
Yes.
Even though Return of the Jedi does, do some world building as well, it isn't as immense as it is in this film, because most of the components have already are in place, by the end of this movie.
Yes, indeed. Not to mention Return of the Jedi is also the end of a trilogy as well.
And not to mention, this movie, it has certain things about that's interesting because, Luke asks the question, is the dark side stronger? And Yoda doesn't really give a definitive answer.
He kind of does. He says, no, only more seductive and destructive.
Yes, but I don't really see that as really an answer, to be honest, if it's really stronger. Because we've seen evidence of it being, at least from what we've seen on the films, to be more powerful. It is more seductive, yes, but it wasn't really an answer. It's Yoda, answering a question in a kind of in a way that doesn't really fully answer the question.
Yoda sort of tries to dodge. He sort of dodges a bullet. He refers to the dark side as the quick and easy path. He doesn't outright say whether or not it's stronger.
Mm-hmm. In some ways, it is stronger. However, it also takes a big toll on you, which is the price to pay when you go to that dark path. Whereas the light side, it doesn't really take a toll on you. However, it does demand that you definitely work harder to get it.
Yes, but both sides of the Force, it does take discipline in order to master it.
Yes.
You can't master either the light or the dark side by simply, just following its teachings. You have to work really hard to master both, sides of the Force.
Yes, that is correct.
And not to mention, Yoda was speaking from the perspective of a Jedi, not a Sith.
That too, yes.
Because how would a Sith react if someone asked that same question, but in reverse?
Is the light side stronger?
Yes. Then again, because even in expanded universe sources, you don't see Sith saying that the dark side stronger than the light side explicitly.
Yeah, I think they say the Force is very powerful, but they don't specifically say the dark side itself. They probably have said the dark side is very strong, but they don't say if it's stronger than the light side.
That's why I'm saying I don't think Yoda really gave Luke an actual answer. Because if he says, "Oh, sure, Luke, it is stronger," what do you think Luke at that point in his training would have done?
He would have completely scrapped. He would have completely scrapped learning the ways of the light. He would have given into temptation.
It's like, screw this. I'm a whiny little bitch. I'm just gonna give into the dark side.
Like Snovia, to put your question to the test, or like to sort of theorize just very quickly what a Sith would say, like a full-fledged Sith, if a student were to ask, is the light side stronger? Instead of doing what Yoda did and just referring to the light side as, oh, it's hard, no, a Sith would actively try to rate it and say that the light side isn't worth following.
Well, of course, not to mention, of course, I don't think a Sith would ever ask that question, because why would you ask that question if you're gaining this power? I'm just saying that it's just, I don't think Yoda would, really wanted to answer the question fully.
Luke had to find out for himself the answer to that later on.
Yeah, so that's why Yoda didn't really give him much of an answer. Because when he was trying to ask the question again, Yoda was getting frustrated with him.
No. No more will I teach you today.
Yeah.
And also as well, even before Luke's training begun and we saw him doing the acrobatics trial, when he's in Yoda's hut, there's a moment where, because of how long it's taken for Yoda to
reveal his identity
known to Luke, there's a point where Yoda is speaking to Obi-Wan telepathically, and he makes a remark about Luke's impatience, and if Luke were to have been on to following the dark side in that exact moment, he no doubt would have taken it, I think.
So yeah, Luke wasn't ready for that kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
Then again, that's a topic for a different day. We're getting way off track here.
Well, it is a topic for another day, specifically expanded universe post Return of the Jedi. But it does make you wonder how the dark side itself truly works, and the light side, which is what Empire Strikes Back definitely expanded on, as we said before, which is excellent.
Not to mention the Empire Strikes Back's subjects of spirituality it's not something that a child can really fully grasp, which is why I would view Empire as the most mature of the Star Wars films.
It also explains why all three of us did not like to watch Empire too much, and we considered it boring when we're younger. That would explain one of the reasons why.
And for these pseudo-intellectuals, I'd like to say The Last Jedi is like the reason you don't like it because it makes you think. Are you kidding? The Empire Strikes Back makes you think. Have you forgotten the spiritual shit in this movie?
Yeah.
Actually, guys, Yoda, we haven't gone into depth with him as a character just yet, have we?
We kind of actually talked about Yoda, actually, when we talked about the Force.
Yeah. Though we should talk about his character since we're still in the same category. So Yoda's character. Oh, we already also talked about how the puppetry worked, but yeah, Yoda, him as a mentor, I actually think he was. You could say he was a different breath of air compared to Obi-Wan. Like you can see that they're not really the same mentor. They have their own ways of how to teach and also their own judgments on Luke Skywalker, if you ask me. We even see it in Empire Strikes Back a bit with how basically Obi-Wan and Yoda don't seem to agree too much with where to take Luke Skywalker. For example, Yoda, he was like, he's not ready. I don't want to train him. But Obi-Wan is like, so was I, if you remember. I was also this impatient child, and you still trained me. So, yeah, I mean, it seems that, yeah, I think Yoda as a mentor here, I actually think is great. I don't know if he's. I take it. I think he's a better mentor than Obi-Wan.
Well, I actually think it's also because Yoda is in his twilight years, and not to mention, and he sees this. When he sees Luke, he's reminded of Anakin.
Yes, much anger in him, like his father.
I think it's not just anger. I think he sees entitlement, which I think as well in Luke, that's what Anakin kind of was.
Yes,
and he was scared of. He didn't want to unleash another.
Darth
Well, I don't know. He didn't train Anakin. I think he also did not want to make the same mistake he made with Dooku.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going by. This is the only Star Wars movie after A New Hope. He's reminded too much of Anakin, and he didn't want to train another Jedi like Anakin.
Another one that could potentially become a Sith Lord.
For me, I get the vibe that he trained Luke as a favor for Obi-Wan.
Yes, me too. Honestly.
Something I want. Sorry, Zenobia, go on.
I've already made my point.
Okay. Something that I do find interesting with Yoda is how he is first for Luke when he's trying to keep his identity a secret. Because me, like, when he's going through when Yoda's just rummaging through Luke's
belongings.
I guess you could say survival belongings. When you see him just rummaging through the box, he kind of makes him look like a toddler, almost like a really excited toddler just rummaging through.
More like
looks like get away from that. And another thing that's quite funny is when he takes the very small light that Luke had, and
R2.
Luke makes the remark about we want to get off this swamp, and you're just like, swamp?
No, not swamp.
And then
we want to get out of this slimy mud hole. Slimy mud hole?
Mud
this
hole.
is my home.
Yes, and then there's that little struggle between Yoda and R2 over the lamp, and then you see Yoda hit R2 with his cane.
If it was today, Luke would have said, "I want to get out of this slimy shithole."
Yeah. And he probably Yoda would have probably been like, slimy shithole? This is my town. Something like that.
Regarding the humor, when Luke is preparing to leave Dagobah because of the vision he has of his friends being in danger on Bespin, he's like, you expect me to leave Han and Leia to die? I forget the exact quote, sorry. And Yoda responds by, if you honor what they fight for, yes. It's a very blunt yes.
And sacrifice Han and Leia? If you honor what they fight for, yes.
It's like, what kind of mentor who takes his job completely seriously would say that to a student?
Well, Yoda's being okay from Yoda's perspective. He sees Luke's completing his training more important than him saving his friends. Because
Yeah,
Yoda said the future is always in motion.
It's difficult to see.
That it's in that it, it's entirely possible. Luke, going there would have made things worse. That his visions could have been a warning against acting without thinking.
And shocker enough, it did get worse.
So it's also so it's possible that what his visions warned Luke about.
Yeah, and even Obi-Wan was saying, "You face Vader, you will do it alone. I cannot fear."
Which still actually I completely shit on later on, but that's another topic.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of that, should we? Because we've kind of been jumping around. Should we talk about the fight between Vader and Luke, or?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So, what do you think of that lightsaber duel?
I think the choreography is in my opinion the best of the original trilogy.
Agreed. I also think it's better than New Hope. A New Hope was just two old men slapping sticks with each other.
Oh, something that I do appreciate, that I do quite like, and this was through just watching the duel back, is that if you look closely at Luke's behavior, even the subtle things, they do very much align with what Yoda said about Luke being impatient. Like at the very beginning, in the first part of the duel, when they're fighting on top of on one of the when they're fighting on the platform that's below the carbon freezing chamber that was used to use Han, there's a brief pause in the fight where you see Luke take a step forward, Vader takes a step back, and then it happens. Forward, step back, step forward, step back. You can see Luke is on defense
On the offensive.
first
Yeah.
section.
I actually think a better example of that would be when you have learned much, young one. You'll find out full of surprises, and in there he gets overconfident to the point at which he gets disarmed by Vader, and he then goes down to the carbonite freezing chamber. Almost got frozen if he didn't use force jump. So, yeah, I mean, Luke, it seems that, if you ask me, this fight, it realistically should have not happened because it made things worse. It showed that Luke wasn't really ready to fight Vader. If anything, Vader was just toying with him. And we saw it in the end with how pretty much Vader just, when he got a bit scarred by Vader's lightsaber, and that was like, okay, fun's over. Screw you. This time, screw your lightsaber. You are going down. And he went down. So
there is a portion in the carbon freezing chamber where when Luke he's disarmed at this point, he's backing away from Vader and he falls into the freezing chamber itself, and then when Vader goes all too easy, he uses the force to activate the freezing process, and then Luke manages to jump out of it, and then says Vader says, "Perhaps you're not as strong as the Emperor thought." And then just after that, he realizes Luke is hanging on
impressive. Most impressive. So, yeah, there is that. Luke is strong, but unfortunately, his training was incomplete. If you ask me, I think he should have not gone to fight Darth Vader. It was definitely a bad move. If anything, it only proved that he made things worse because he realized in the end that he will forever be scarred, not only physically, but also mentally, of the events of that lightsaber duel. He lived on with those events in his mind and physically for many years to come. Because, as you guys know, what happened at the end of the lightsaber duel?
He loses his hand.
Yes, that's the physical part. The mental part.
His learning about who his father was, and basically everything he believed who his father was a lie.
Yep.
You can see that Luke is in complete shock when Vader reveals that he is his father. No, Oh, that's not true. That's impossible.
No! No!
No.
And then
It's like Vader said, "You want to know what's worse, Luke? I killed younglings."
Oh my god! I'm in
You know-
Snovia!
I don't know if that would have in the case, because that would have actually made him turn off from joining Vader. But
Ignore that, ladies and gents. Snovia's just being a clown.
thank
He
God
is.
Dolan's not here. Otherwise, he would have, done the same thing.
Who would have milked that?
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Luke, at this point, that is one of those traumatic moments he will never get rid of, ever. Which is stark contrast to certain female main protagonists that has none of those in the future. Right?
Wait, who's Ray? I don't remember a character named Ray. I don't remember there was an episode 7, 8, and 9. I thought there was only 6 Star Wars movies.
I thought so too,
sequel-
but unfortunately, Disney Star Wars is a thing. So there is that.
Sequel fans, we're sorry. We can't help this. It's habit.
Honestly, sequel trilogy is bad. If that didn't exist in Disney Star Wars, this Star Wars would be a lot better. I'm being realistic there. So anyway, so
Then we come to. Yes, back on topic, gents. Come on. So then we come to the very end with, well, not the very end of the film, but the very end of that scene where Vader is trying to feed Luke temptation to join him. They can destroy the Emperor.
he has foreseen
and
it.
It is your destiny. Join
As
me.
father and son.
Together, we can rule the galaxy as father and son. And at this point, Luke has to make a very big decision. Either, a fatal decision. He either joins Vader or he lets go of the vein, the weather vein he's holding on to, and falls. Then Vader says, "Come with me. It is the only way." What does
And
Luke
Luke
do?
saw another way.
Falls
He
down.
fell. Mhm.
And this is where we get to what I was alluding to before about special edition changes, because in the 97 version, there's a special edition change where Luke actually screams as he's falling down. I don't know if you guys have seen that one.
I have. Awful.
I have.
Thank God it's stuck to that edition.
Yeah, the scream sounds crap. It ruins the moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't even sound like Mark Hamill, that scream, to be honest.
Thank God they got rid of it for 2004 and onwards. Thank God. So there is that. So yeah, I mean, that definitely is a thing. Now, with everything we've discussed regarding Empire Strikes Back, has the movie aged well or badly? How has it?
I'd say it's aged well.
Yeah, Darksnovia?
Oh, say that again.
Has the movie aged well or badly, considering everything?
I think it's
we've
aged.
discussed?
I think it's aged pretty well.
Yeah, I think so too, to be honest. It is one of those old movies that has definitely aged very well. So, indeed. So, I guess that's the answer to this specific part of the podcast. So, is there anything else to discuss?
There really isn't much more to discuss. We said everything we needed to say.
Okay, then I guess we go to the conclusion of this podcast. So, I'll go last. So, who goes first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Well, it was a pleasure doing this podcast. Sorry for being late. Stuff happens. But you already know what that stuff was. We would have originally done this in May, but things happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, stay safe, everyone. Have a good day.
Luke?
It's been a real pleasure. It was months worth of waiting, but it was a real pleasure doing this with you guys. Thank you for giving me this shot.
Okay. So my case, my final words, this movie definitely is an excellent watch. Do not watch it before A New Hope. Definitely watch A New Hope first, then watch this one. So do that. Do not bother watching this one first. So just saying that. Which special edition watch? anyone as long as it's not the 97 one. That's all I'm going to say. So in terms of that. Now, in terms of the overall movie itself, yeah, age well, watch it. So there is that. Now, before we end this podcast, there is one thing I'm going to mention that later on, there is going to be an announcement video that is going to arrive to Darksnovia's channel. So stay tuned for that. Okay? So that was all I had to mention. So I guess that's pretty much it, guys. So we'll see you on the next State of Star Wars podcast and also the next video that Darksnovia is going to show up. So bye-bye, guys.
Later.